Hey everybody, this is another anime reaction. Um, the anime I just recently watched was called Requiem from the Darkness, um, which, with my overall impression of it, was pretty good. I have a tendency to like kind of dark, um, I don't say dark contented pieces. If you've watched my anime reaction to Berserk and things like that. Obviously, you can tell I get really excited about this stuff. I don't know if it's necessarily a morbid curiosity or just the fact that the darker side of human behavior is really something that I find appealing. But obviously, in Japanese culture, there are a lot of ghost stories and things, and talk about yokai, which are like supernatural beings that appear. But Requiem from the Darkness kind of takes from that motif. It's actually a 13 episode anime that I can't remember when it was done, mid 2000s possibly. Um, but it's actually based off of a horror writer, Japanese horror writer, and crime mystery writer. But it's based off of his stories, and it follows kind of this journey of an author in Edo, and this is during the Edo period, which is the Tokugawa area, and when things are starting to get a little dicey in the Tokugawa shogunate, period of time. But anyway, this author's from Edo, and he's basically works at like a publishing house, and he's originally commissioned to do like a riddle book, but he really wants to write these 100 ghost stories, and he wants to put them in a collection. But along his journey, he meets these kind of three, supernatural beings almost. Uh, One's basically an exorcist, or he's got talismans and things like that to ward off evil. He's like a trickster, Mateichi. The second one is a puppeteer and a kind of a very voluptuous, woman named Ogin. And then the last one is a shapeshifter guy who's also a bird caller called Nagamimi. But anyway, it runs into these three characters, and so it's only 13 episodes long. There isn't a whole lot of there isn't a huge overarching plot. I mean, there's an overarching character antagonist. I think his name's Kyogo Kute. I believe his name is. You don't really know the identity of this person or being until later, but for the most part, the format is about every episode is highlighted with a kind of a based off of a horror story. The whole thing is the writer knows, he's very knowledgeable about wherever he goes, all these horror stories, and talk about these beings, and most of it has to do with revenge or things these people have done in their past that are wrong, human behavior and things like that. And it's kind of cool because these three characters I mentioned earlier kind of show up, and they like act as retribution. But it's interesting to see how the retribution is enacted. And there's these twists on these common folklore tales, Japanese folklore tales, that kind of play into how the punishment is dealt out. And to me, that was really interesting. As far as the look goes, it has a very stylized look. The color scheming I thought was really interesting. There's a lot of like purples and bright yellows, and almost like a it's very oversaturated palette, but there's a lot of contrast. And the line work is interesting. Some of the character designs are interesting too, because all the main characters are very detailed. But like any side characters, such as like normal everyday people, some of them are drawn very rudimentary. Like some people don't have mouths, and some people just look like they have circles for heads. But it's very simple. It works. The style, it works very well, I think, because obviously you're not being attracted to these people, but you're focusing on the main characters. It's That part was pretty cool. I'd say the one drawback to me is there are parts that were very confusing. It doesn't always go in chronological order on the episodes, so you kind of sometimes you have to play catch up, and sometimes the only stuff's explained through dialogue. So unless you're really paying attention, you may miss something within the episodes itself and be like, "Wait a minute, what are they talking about? What happened?" And again, some of the vocabulary, since it deals a lot with the spiritual element of Japanese culture, they do actual, you know, they pronounce the actual Japanese saying or phrase or creature, things like that in the in Japanese. Obviously, there's no translation for it, so you kind of miss sometimes what the meaning is or what they're talking about, especially if you get confused. I know for me, I've studied Japanese enough where I can kind of figure out, what they're saying and if something sounds different or similar. But if you're not used to that, it can be kind of confusing. And I just think it comes from being an English speaker and not being used to it. But I would say the voice cast was pretty good. I really like the opening sequence for whatever reason. It's kind of set to Kyoko Lee, who I think is she's a artist, but she does almost like a jazzy style music, but she sings in English, and they've paired it in with the opening sequence. But for me, it feels very together, and it was to me something about it was very compelling. The way the things are animated and come together and flow in with the music. And it seems like it has a very dark tone, which is the overall appeal of it. Again, it's a short anime, so if you want to check it out, it really didn't take very long. Like I said, it's 13 episodes. It isn't like something that's 26 or even longer than that. 52. Some animes are, but for the most part, I would recommend it. It's not so unappealing. I'd probably watch it again. There were some episodes I really liked. There's some episodes I thought were very not controversial, but very kind of like you're like, whoa, this is kind of creepy or odd, or makes me feel extremely uncomfortable. Which it probably was meant to make you feel, but I was amazed that even due to the way some of the things that don't look very serious, how they look, how serious the tone is, and they probably did that on purpose, but it is really interesting. So, but that's pretty much it. I'm gonna try to keep these videos shorter. I know I've had a shit ton of long ones. So, anyway, and if you guys have any suggestions or anything you want to say about this anime in particular, if you want to suggest anything else for other people to watch, you can do that too. Just comment or not, just go out and enjoy the anime. So, Requiem from the Darkness, I would recommend it. It's a kind of a nice change of pace. Dark elements, you like horror, you like kind of grittiness and things like that, and it does have some humor in there too, so that's not a bad thing. But Requiem from the Darkness, that's all I gotta say. So I will talk to you guys later.